All right, guys, so making some good progress on the shop here. Testing out a couple things. I got a long ways to go, but I'm testing out the audio. Now that I have some things in here, hopefully the echo's cut down a little bit. I can hear it, but I'm interested to see how it comes across on my DJI mic. As you can see, I got the table saw set up, so really excited about that. Really excited about that. It took a little bit to get it in here. I had to, I moved the saw on a box truck with a lift gate. That made things nice. The outfeed was another story. I got that over here on my utility trailer. Old school technique, just rolled it on those landscape, big 4-inch landscape rods and got it in here. Got it all leveled. That was a little bit of an effort because something new that I'm doing here in this shop, I don't know if we'll be able to see it, see if I can pivot. You can see it over there just coming across the ground in front of the miter saws. I've got the electrical running through conduit across the ground. So I'm gonna have to obviously put some kind of threshold or something like that, keep me from tripping over that. But I've got it feeding both the saw itself, so that's got its own 220 circuit, but also the dust collector. And that's another thing I'm excited about, a little thing I noticed in one of Cody Sandoval's tours. I was stressing a little bit, figuring out like, what am I gonna do with the dust collector and do all this ducting and all that crap. And I realized that like the majority of the time, I'm just using the dust collector for the table saw. Yes, I'll use it for the planer, but the majority of the time, that's what I'm using it for. So I'll just put it right at the back of that. And that's got probably 9 feet of outfoot clearance right there. If I'm like, cutting something down that's bigger than that, it's on a rolling stand, so I can temporarily move it out of the way with flex duct, so it won't even be that big a deal. I think it's gonna be a great solution. I don't think it's gonna be in the way at all. And the way it's set up is I've got it set up ready for blast gates, so I could, close the one to the table saw and open it up to some sort of auxiliary piece of equipment, like a planer, for example. So I think that's gonna work out really well. Also, I've got the start of my racking going in, so I'll adjust that more once I get my forklift, which has kind of been a pain in the butt. It was supposed to be here last week. It wasn't. It set me back big time, so I'm a little bit frustrated with that, but be that as it may, I'll just make the best of it. But supposed to be here tomorrow, so I'm excited about that because I'll be able to move a lot of things around. That mold that's sitting there is pretty heavy. It's plaster, so had a boo-boo with that already, so I want to make sure to get the forklift to be able to raise that thing up, move those racks up so I can store more stuff underneath. I've also got some more racks that I can put, coming for those 2 decks there. Another thing that's I got going that's functional and it's turned out to be a really great addition to the shop is the wood locker. That's another thing I picked up from Cody Sandoval. I've just got a couple of 10-foot uprights there, separated by a shorter set of load beams, so they're 51-inch load beams. And then I've got those M dividers for vertical, sort of separating out the basic different types of materials that I use. Really able to store a lot of material in there. Obviously, the downside is going to be like stuff stored for a long time is going to bow over time, so I have to deal with that. But other than that, really great. And the whole idea, this is where it all starts, right here. So huge amount of thought and effort put into setting up this shop for flow. So the first idea here is this is where the raw materials come in terms of sheet goods that are the foundation of mold fabrication. Bring the sheet goods in. I've got 12 feet coming in of infeed into the table saw. So the first step here will be to break those sheet goods down, likely with the track saw. And so you'll see my tracks are right there. Tilt them down, put them on a table, grab a track, break it down into sort of rough dimensions, and then I'll run those through the table saw to get them to final dimension if needed. And then the next step in flow will be, of course, and this is just, normally my on-site miter saw stand there. I have my cabinets, I just need to install them. And then this whole wall here will be miter saw, drill press, and other, milling operations along this wall, along with lumber racks going up, taking advantage of that vertical space. So the flow works out really nicely. Once I've got my sort of dimensioned and ready to roll, we then come into this area here, which is more the mold fabrication area. area. Again, I've got probably 15 feet between the end of the outfeed and that rack where I can easily start doing some fine tuning, mold, sort of assembly, and then preparation, and then moving that into staging area over here. And I should probably turn a light on. So I'm using my wireless mic, so the audio is going to sound incredible even though I'm walking way far away from the camera all the way across the shop, yet the audio is going to sound perfect. So this will be the staging area, and not only will the molds be assembled and then starting to prep, so clay and mold release and cleanup, whatever it is, but also the batching area. Excited about this. I am moving to a system anchored by bag mixes. I might still veer off it from time to time, but my go-to is going to be a bag mix. You'll see a couple over there. I'm gonna do sort of an informal head-to-head evaluation of each of those. And then that way I'll be able to state objectively that I've tried those two different systems, and I'm gonna do a complete. So not only the bag mix, but the plasticizer that they recommend, the sealer that they recommend, and then I will sort of put them to the test in a variety of pieces I plan to cast that are everything from something sprayed up with a face coat and hand packed to, more direct cast SEC types of mixes, and see what works best for me in my conditions and the types of things that I make. So that's all gonna happen here. And then another thing that you'll notice there is that new toy, one of several, is the Columix vertical shaft pan mixer. So really excited about this guy. Come over here and take a look at this a little bit. Obviously the Eimer is sort of the industry standard go-to. I decided to go a different direction after talking to Tom Fisher at Fishstone, and decided on the Columix. If it wasn't Columix, I probably would have stuck with an Eimer 120 Plus and just been done with it. But the Columix obviously is a very good reputation in terms of mixers go as well, and a couple things that I liked about it. First of all, it's 220, which could actually be a negative for a lot of people if you're trying to take it on site. That's not going to be me. Like, the odds on me doing work on site with this thing are very, very low. So 220, not a factor, but the plus side are just in terms of the power and the efficiency with 220 versus 110 delivery. The second thing that I'm really excited about is cleanup, because these things, my understanding, and I've never used one, but I can imagine, are rather sizable power cord out of the way. These things are notoriously a chore to clean. This one is unique in that this whole paddle assembly, and then of course the individual paddles themselves bolted on. So the whole thing can be broken down. The paddle assembly comes out, making it for really easy cleaning, both of the paddles and inside but also from a maintenance standpoint, my guess is that looks like any part on this thing can be sort of replaced if it's needed. So those are a couple of factors that, for me, again, it's a well-known name, well-known specifically in mixers. The power delivered through 220 ought to be nice. Capacity's a little bit bigger, my understanding, than the 120, and just the cleanup associated with it. So I'm excited about it for those reasons. We'll find out. I'm gonna put it to the test on that pallet of mixes right there, and we're gonna see how it goes. So again, another thing you'll notice in flow here is that everything's got its spot, right? And it has a spot in a very logical place in the shop. This area here, right next to batching, is my cleanup station. I got used to this a long time ago in California. Folks are probably familiar. We had real challenges with water. I got pretty comfortable with a recycled water system. So I go get big water totes from a recycle station that's right near me. Those will go up here on this pallet rack, and then below will go drums of cleanup. So basic 3-stage sort of manual system for cleanup. Not sure why the auto picked me up. There we go. So pick this up from Buddy Rhodes, 3 drums. Put your heavy waste in the first one. Sediment will fall to the bottom. Clean water will rise to the top. Once it gets to the top, it'll overflow into drum number 2. Sediment will go to the bottom of that. Cleaner water will rise. That will overflow into drum number 3. Once it hits drum number 3, it's pretty safe for disposal at that point. So just out into the sewer with a little bit of treatment, nothing crazy, but that's gonna be my approach, along with sort of the getting rid of the heavy bulk, in one of those kiddie pools or something like that. That all happens here, water tote driven by a pump, hooked up to a sprayer, and then my cleanup area right here I've been using a bathtub for a long time. Works great because obviously it's large, really easy to clean up larger, sort of tools, or, even spray off molds or pieces themselves. But I'm gonna take it to the next level, and I'm just gonna panel this. Now, initially, I'm probably just gonna panel it with something simple like those cheap ass shower panels. But ultimately, I'm gonna cast some fiberglass panels with a punch of color that'll look awesome. It'll be waterproof, really easy, lightweight, really nice area there to contain it. And then the next thing I gotta do, well, that's the cleanup, very logically placed next to the batching station. So batch, right? So this whole area over here, this whole side of the shop is dedicated to casting. So most of the pieces I cast aren't that big, but that being said, I've got a pretty decent sized area to be able to cast big pieces if I need to do it. So that'll all happen here, again, real close to the cleanup station, and then processing will happen here as well. Something I really put a lot of thought into. Now you'll notice we've been kind of walking through this in sort of a semicircular fashion. That's not an accident, right? That's by design as part of designing this workspace. One of the things I've really struggled with in the past is capturing good photo and video content of my work, which is a shocker because I'm so into it. I wasn't set up for it before. So you know how it goes. You're always late getting something to a site anyways. So it's like the last thing in your mind is taking photos in your shop. So then you get to deliver it, and by the time you're done doing that, it's like, I'm done with it. I'll photograph the next, right? Or perhaps, what's most likely is you get to a space, you install, but the rest of it isn't really like set up very well for photography anyway. So either way, losing out on good opportunities to take photos of the work. This area right here is actually going to be designed specifically for staging pieces for customers to pick up and or photographing and videoing those. This whole wall will be a really beautiful wall. It's going to have concrete open joint probably, but whatever, and then this little bump in inset here will be garapa. I happen to have some on hand. And then that in and of itself will make a really beautiful backdrop for a lot of pieces. But there might be cases where I want more just like a studio photo with a really black or a really crisp white background. Well, up above, I've already got this. I've got rolls of photography background paper on reels. So those will go up high. Right when a piece is finished, move it into this area and stage it, and it'll be just a few minutes to capture studio quality photos and video of my work. It's going to be a game changer for me because content is a big part of my business going forward. That leads me to this area here. It's not set up for it yet, but it was part of the build out. It was already here. So I'm going to put a lot of thought into actually turning that into a sealer room and or a booth. Now, sealer room, no problem. Booth, that's a little bit more thought needs to go into that because of the sort of emissions, the flammables and things like that. Need to make sure that those are being exhausted correctly with explosion-proof vans. Those things are not cheap. Vented properly. I'm in California. That's not an easy task either, but be that as it may, the build out is there, so I'm at least gonna put some thought into it. But at a minimum, I could use it for a clean room for sealers. And then finally, once those pieces are photographed, ready to go, they go out door number 2. That's a real game changer for me in setting up this semicircular flow, is having 2 roll-up doors, right? Kind of unusual for a shop this size because it's not that big. It's only 2,000 square feet, a little bit less actually. But to be able to have 2 roll-up doors and the geometry of a fairly square shop really lends itself, with a sort of a rectangular shop, but one that's not too narrow, really lends itself to that semicircular flow. The other thing that's really cool about this place, so this is where customers will either come and see their finished pieces or they get loaded up and out the door. The build out here, which is pretty ugly right now, but a huge opportunity here. This build out's 500 square feet, showroom in front, offices in back with a full-on area in there for actually filming more content that's like sitting behind a desk where maybe I'm explaining something in SketchUp or a design that I'm going through or something like that. Hopefully that was a kind of an interesting walkthrough of the progress in my new space. Really excited about it. It's taken forever to get to this point. I got the keys in January, was getting ready to go. We had the really bad floods. Then I caught COVID. knocked me on my ass for a couple weeks. And then it was just one thing after another, trying to get to a point where I can actually start to see the shop take place. And now it's coming to life a little bit, and I'm really excited about, you know, where it is now. I'm getting a feel of what I hoped it would be. I'm getting validation of that it's actually going to be that way. So more to come. I got a lot of work to do, but at least I have the infrastructure in place to now do it. And I'll report back as I make progress. Keep taking those creations to the next level, and I'll see you in the next one.